Welcome back to the channel. I just wanted to do a quick video on lower intake manifold prep for an L67. It would be similar for an L32. There's not much difference other than the opening of the lower intake is about 3/4 of an inch further over for the different supercharger. But other than that, essentially identical. All I really had to do, and this is also common for if you're prepping an L36 or L26 naturally aspirated lower intake for either a basic reinstall, or if you're upgrading it for a turbo setup, you can also do some things here too. So the main thing I like to do is eliminate these yellow O-rings that go right here. Those are just coming up from the cylinder heads up through the two ports in the intake gasket here, and they are heading over to the throttle body. They just kind of ensure the throttle body is at the same temperature as the engine. That's going to happen anyway through just conduction of heat once the engine's running anyways. I think they were just being super extra careful, making sure the throttle blade doesn't freeze shut either on early startup or if you're, I don't know, running wide open across Antarctica or something like that. But if you are, you're probably going to generate enough heat that it's going to stay thawed. So basically what I do is I drill and tap them for half 20 fine thread, 1/2 inch little plugs. So using the fine thread, and I'll show you the tap drill suggested is 29/64. If you want a more normal number, you can get a 7/16, which is 28/64. And that will ensure you at least get, and I don't know if it's going to want to focus here. There we go. You get about 2 or 3 threads. So if you were to do the coarse thread, which is, I believe, 1/2 13, you would probably get 1 thread if you're lucky. And the other thing is to make sure that you are vertical, because I've had it happen to me before where you're a little off on the tap, but you don't notice it when you're set up. And then by the time you get these things in there, they're sitting at like a little 15-degree angle. And to make sure that everything installs flush, you're going to have to sand them down. And this is holding back coolant, so you will want to give them a little bit of sealant, either Teflon tape or maybe even finish it off on the top with some RTV silicone. That way they are staying in there. Or you can use some Teflon paste. Whatever you want to do, just make sure that they're staying sealed, because you don't want anything getting up here. The whole point is to prevent coolant getting to your paper gasket that goes on top of here. The next thing is obviously the 1 cent EGR block off. So that will sit right in there, and all you have to do is do a little silicone on that. Make sure that's sealed against this hole, and that's all that takes, is just put a penny in there, silicone it in place, and then put it up against the intake manifold. You can do something similar on the exhaust manifold if you want, or you can do something fancier. And if you want to buy a piece, go for it. The purchased billet pieces are also nice. Or you can make one by hand if you have the material. And then just clean up the cover. I'm going to clean up all these bolts. I happen to have an ultrasonic cleaner that I bought for cleaning fuel injectors and stuff. And I'm going to put all these bolts in there for a couple minutes to clean that up. But other than that, don't get very aggressive when you're cleaning this off. You can see all I did was basically hit it with some Scotch-Brite. And I kind of ran a flat file over it just to make sure no burrs or anything were sticking up. Because you basically just want to keep, you can see this original factory machine surfacing is still on there. A little bit of just surface corrosion in places that were exposed to the elements. Not worried about those right now. If you want to go extreme, you just got to be careful, because you can create waves in this thing that will cause the supercharger not to torque down properly. You could bind up your rotors if you get too radical, and you just want it clean. All I did here was I put it in this parts washer, and I just kind of did a quick cleaning of it. I wasn't trying to go immaculate. Otherwise, I'd have to do a whole hot tanking or sit there with a brush or something for a very long time. So obviously it's getting new AC Delco aluminum gaskets. It had those before because he'd had some maintenance done, and thankfully that's what they were using. So we didn't have an issue with coolant leaking out of those black ports, working their way either into the intake passages or even worse, down into the valley. So right now I have it covered up because I was doing a little bit of cleaning of the surfaces here and kind of brushing out the grime in those ports as well. And I'm going to vacuum this out after I pull that out, but you do not want stuff dropping into that valley. So I'm about to put this lower intake on, just making sure I do RTV in the four corners as I put those gaskets down. And then I'll bolt down the rockers and button everything else back up on this project that I'm doing. So that is pretty much it. Other than that, I didn't do anything elaborate. I think I just kind of cleaned up these surfaces the same as the top, not getting too aggressive. I opened up this coolant passage. That's an important thing. If you're going to block these off, it is one little avenue going between the front and rear head. So this makes sure that I have more than enough flow that is going to go make a U-turn around this cover and go from the front to the rear head and help out evening the temperature across the engine. So if you are going to do this, get out your Dremel. I use just an aggressive little Dremel aluminum bit. That's a pretty aggressive bit, but you just have to be careful. It's going to make a mess because you're Dremeling aluminum, and just kind of be careful. I do it basically up to this inner wall that's in there and just get it flush with that on both sides. Don't open the top or bottom at all. I just kind of cleaned the surface there, but just being able to get to that and make this run from the front to the rear cylinder head will help you out a lot. Making sure that this didn't impede anything, and it also just generally helps the engine out. So other than that, we're going to get some new aluminum coolant elbows to go in here and fresh gaskets all around, and this will go right back on the engine. So thanks for checking this out. If you have any tips you want to put in yourself for what you do, I don't really do any of the porting of these because most of the business is going on right here anyway. This is where all of the boost is coming out of the busy end of the supercharger. The pressure exit of the supercharger rotors are down here anyways. So cutting out this triangle for no reason really doesn't do anything for you. On an intercooler, maybe a little bit just to expose more of the core, but even then, I think they're starting to get away from that because they know that the hot side of the rotors is over here. This is where everything's going on. So opening this up is just kind of an option, and if you don't need to, don't worry about it. It's not going to gain you any benefits. If you want to get fancy and start doing some port and polish down in there, that's up to you. I don't see too many people doing that, and I don't think it's hurting anybody not doing that. But if you're trying to go all out and just get super in the weeds on it, have a blast. Make this project your own. This is just my suggestion. If you got any tips, like I said, leave them down below. Or if you come up with a way to show somebody how to do something different on this, feel free to make your own video and share with the community. Thanks.